Give me a moment. I'm just checking if we are live. I'm just double checking if I'm able to hear my voice. I think I'm able to hear my voice, but the screen is not getting shared. Let me check. So I have set the screen share. I'm just double checking if I'm still able to see my screen or not. Yeah, I am able to see it. So yeah, I can hear my voice as well. So hi everyone, this is Ajay from Tech Primers. So welcome to the channel. So in this particular session, we are going to see how to write JUnit test cases in Java using JUnit 5. So if you are familiar with JUnits, right? So you would have written test cases for testing your application. So if you are not familiar with what JUnit is, so I'll just cover in a brief, right? So JUnits are nothing but a framework for testing your production code inside your program or the inside your package itself, so inside your code base itself basically. So there are lots of versions of JUnits already, so right from 1 to 4. So I have used JUnit 4 and 5, 4 and 3 basically, so not the 5. So 5 is something which is new, which they have created uh, as a part of the Java 8 upgrade, which Java did, right? So for lambdas and stuff. So JUnit 5 also upgraded their version, and they have done quite a bit of change for making your application testable. Okay, so they have done lots of research in making JUnit a better standard for testing your application along with Java 8. Okay, so there are lots of other testing frameworks like TestNG, Cucumber, and other stuff, but JUnits are very simple. And I used to use JUnit. Many people use TestNG as well, but I prefer JUnit. So and I got pretty much excited with JUnit 5. So I wanted to check what JUnit 5 is and how is it different from the JUnit 4 versions, right? So that is what we are going to see. So we are going to write a small application, and then we are going to test that application using JUnit 5, and we are going to see how easy it is and how different it is from the JUnit 4, which we were using some time back. Okay, so if I go through the typical change which JUnit 5 has done. So in the JUnit 5, the Java JUnit package has been split into three. Okay, so there is a JUnit platform, there is a Jupyter, and there is Vintage. Okay, so JUnit platform is the runtime environment on which your tests will be running. So all the JUnit tests which you will be writing will be running on the JUnit platform. So they have created literally a platform for running your JUnit tests. So previously we used to have JUnit runners, right? So we used to add in JUnit 4, if you had used, we used to add an annotation with at run with and then say JUnit 4 runner or a Mockito runner. So we used to have a runtime environment. So that is the JUnit platform. JUnit Jupyter is where the API is all composed. So you can use JUnit APIs using the Jupyter jar. Okay, and then there is a JUnit Vintage, which provides a test engine for running the older ones. So as the name suggests, right? So Vintage. So using the JUnit Vintage, we can run the JUnit 3 and JUnit 4 based test on the same JUnit platform. Okay, so this is the major change in the JUnit 5. So let's go ahead and start our application. Before that, so I just wanted to into our example, right? So if you have heard about the FizzBuzz game, so it's basically a word game which children play uh, to learn division, basically. Okay, so so basically, if you say a number, they have to check if it is divisible by 3 or 5. So if the number is divisible by 3, they say fizz. If the number is divisible by 5, they say buzz. Okay, so that is the basic example which we are going to write. So if you had seen my other Kotlin video on writing BDD style tests, So I have used the same example, but yeah, before going into the example, I just wanted to say what is FizzBuzz, so that way it will be easier for us to write the test, write the code basically. Okay, so I have a basic Maven project. So there is nothing in this project. I just created a Maven project out of the Maven Arch type. Okay, and let's go ahead and start writing the FizzBuzz class, right? So I'm going to say I'm going to create a package for testing. Okay, and let's write our code inside this. Okay, so for the FizzBuzz class, I'll create a FizzBuzz class. Okay, so I have a FizzBuzz class. Now we need to write a test for this class, right? So I use the shortcuts in IntelliJ most of the time. So I have just I'm just using a create test option. So once I do a create test, I'm just going to select JUnit 5. So my IntelliJ automatically detects JUnit 5 because I had been writing test with JUnit 5. So I say create the test. So my test is ready. Let's get these unnecessary things out of the window, right? Okay, so I have my test ready. So how do we write test? So it's the same, you add a test annotation, but before that we need to add a dependency, right? So we need to add the Maven dependency. So this is just a basic Maven project, right? So I've already created a template. Okay, so this is nothing but a live template. So I have created a template in IntelliJ. So if I use a template, all my code is coming in. So it is just a feature of IntelliJ where you can create templates. So you can create a what do you call a shortcut for a set of lines of code which you want to type, which we repeat most of the time, right? So if you see here, I have a template. I have created the template, and these are the basic necessities for a JUnit project. So I'm using Java 1.8. I have a Jupyter version and the platform. So I have a plugin called Maven compiler plugin, which is the normal Maven compiler plugin, and then I have a Surefire plugin. So inside the Surefire plugin, I am using the dependency platform. So JUnit platform. So this is basically the JUnit platform which we saw here in the JUnit, right? So in the guide. So this is nothing but the JUnit platform. So JUnit Jupyter is nothing but a dependency for writing our API code. So I have added JUnit um, Jupyter for writing our JUnit code. Now I have added the dependencies. Let me import the project so that I'll be able to use that in my code. Okay, so we have added the dependencies in the project. So if I had the add annotation test, so if you see here, the package is org JUnit Jupyter API. So previously in JUnits you would have used org JUnit dot test, right? Now in the Jupyter it is completely different. So this is coming from a different jar. So I'm going to write my test. I'm going to say test number. Okay, this doesn't seem right? So if I read this test number, I'm not able to understand it, right? So what JUnit has done is JUnit has added an annotation called display name, and you can provide a description for this particular test case. Okay, so play FizzBuzz with number equal to 1. So I'm going to say that my number is 1, and so this test case will be shown as if I run this test case, right? There is nothing in this test case, so it will just obviously pass. So I'm just running this test case. If I run this test case, you will see that it shows the description shows up well. So when I actually identified that no tests were found, right? And also if you notice, it fails saying no such method error. Okay, this is because we did not add the platform engine into our dependency. However, let's say if I build it using a Maven project, right? If I do build it using Maven test, this will pass, this test case will run. However, when I ran it from IntelliJ, it was not running because we did not provide the platform for it to run. If you notice the pom.xml, I have provided the platform as a plugin for Maven to be built. So if you see here, Maven build is successful, and I see that the FizzBuzz test has run successfully here. But when I ran it from IntelliJ, it did not run because we did not provide the platform for it. So in order to do that, I can add the platform here. So I'll add the JUnit platform engine. So I'll just add the platform org JUnit platform. Okay, I'm just adding the same version. So here I need to use the JUnit platform version. Okay, I'll just say import project. Now if I run this test case, I should be able to um, run it because the platform is now embedded inside this particular class itself. So if I run the test case, because previously Maven was able to identify, because you gave that as a plugin, right? We gave that as a plugin and Maven was able to do that. So right now I think it is not able to. Why? I think I messed up with the name of the, I think it should be only Maven JUnit platform. Let's check. I'm still not sure whether it is Maven JUnit platform or JUnit platform version. So let's check that in the documentation, right? So okay, I think it should be the runner. Yeah, it should be the runner because that's what we need, right? Sorry guys. So the artifact is JUnit platform runner. Okay. So I've just imported the project. Let's run this test case. Hopefully it runs. Yep, it got succeeded. And if you notice that this particular test case, which we wrote, is showing us play FizzBuzz with number one. Okay. So what this basically means is that this display name is a clear representation of our test with a meaningful information. So when I see that using a Surefire plugin, or when I see that at a higher level, right? So for example, here when I have hundreds of tests running, I can see and easily identify, okay, this particular test case is failing due to some code change which I can relate it to. If I don't have this display name here, so how do I say it, right? So I just see it as a test number, and I don't have any information on what this test is all about, right? So that is where this display name will help us in identifying or describing a test case. Okay, so that is one more feature of JUnit 5. So you add a display name. They have added a display name. Okay, let's go ahead and start writing our code, right? So I'm just going to create a new instance of FizzBuzz. Okay, and then I'm going to say play, and I'm going to pass the number one because that is what we wanted, right? And also what we need is a string, right? FizzBuzz string. Okay, so this function method is not there. I'm going to create that play. Okay, I'm going to say number, and then for now I'm returning null here. Okay, so now I need to assert it. So I'm going to say assertions dot assert equal. So assertions is provided by JUnit 5. So if you notice that Jupyter has the assertions, and I'm going to say FizzBuzz is it equivalent to 1. Okay, what we require is this. If I pass 1, I need 1, right? So if I say 1, the child has to say 1 because it is not divisible by 3 or 5, right? So the FizzBuzz example, as I said earlier, so if a number is divisible by 3, you have to say fizz. If the number is divisible by 5, you have to say buzz. If it is not divisible by either of them, you have to just say the number, right? So if you notice here, expected is null and actual is 1. So that is what is happening. So let's go ahead and do our coding, right? So here what do I need to do? I just need to do string dot value of, I'm just converting the number to string, and then I'm just sending it, so that now my test case will pass, right? So that is what I expected in the test case, right? So the test case has passed. So now let's move on to the next use case, right? Okay, I just copy paste this. Now I say play FizzBuzz with a number 3. Okay, FizzBuzz. I'm just saying FizzBuzz, and then I'm just going to pass 3, and I'm expecting, sorry, this is fizz, right? Test fizz. I'm expecting fizz. So what will it return? It is not going to return me anything, right? It is going to return me only 3 because we didn't code it. But yeah, this is how you do TDD, right? So you make the test fail and then you start making your code work. But I don't do TDD as such, but I'm just showing you for guys like how you can do it. But yeah, so what we need to do is we need to check if the number is divisible by 3, and then I'm just going to say return fizz, right? Now it should pass because we have added it now, right? It's passed. So what do we need to do next? So we need a buzz, right? I'll just copy paste this. Most of the time, this is how we write the code in production, right? So we copy paste from somebody else, and then we start writing exactly the same thing, and we start accumulating the same problem which others are faced. But yeah, it's not a good practice, but in general you can do to a greater extent. You can use these templates which I have showed, right? You can use some templates to reuse the same code. You can create templates in your IntelliJ, and wherever you want to write the same code, you can use that. Okay, so as expected, the test case failed. Now let's go to the main class, and I'm going to say, sorry, I'm going to say if it is divisible by 5, then say buzz, right? So now the test case should work, right? Okay. Now, if you notice here, we have done this creation of FizzBuzz repetitively, right? So in every test case, you are doing the same thing. So we can group that and add it in a different method. So there is something called before. Okay, if you had used the JUnit, you know that okay, there is something called before. In JUnit 5, there is something called BeforeEach. So in order to align with the BDD standards, JUnit has now changed their annotations, or they are added their annotations to have BDD style. So you have an add before. So you can write, you have an add before each basically. Okay, so what I will do, I'll just create the variable, the FizzBuzz object here, so that we can access it throughout the class. And I say FizzBuzz equal to new FizzBuzz here, and I just basically use the variable here. So why am I not able to access here? Might not have initialized. I have initialized, right? FizzBuzz. Why is it throwing an error? I have no clue. Ah, this is because the variable names which I had used is now creating a problem for me. Okay, so let me use FizzBuzz object, or FZ, right? FB. I'll just say FB. Right. Okay. Suddenly I doubted my Java skills. Okay, FP. So I'm just going to use the same object here. So what happens is every time, just before each will be called and your object gets created. You don't have to do that again every time. So and there is an after each as well. So similar to after in JUnit 4. So there is an after each. So you can just do the tear down. So basically these are called as setup and tear down. So I'm just saying if p equal to null. So I'm just deallocating the memory which we allocated. Okay, this is basically setup. You can name it as anything, but in general that is the convention, right? You have a setup and the tear down. So if I run the test case, it should work. Okay. The only thing is we have just modularized our code, and we have just reused some object creation using the before option, before each option. Now let's say I want to ignore a particular test. So what we used to do in JUnits 4 and JUnit 3, we used to say ignore, right? So now there is an option to say disable. Okay, so you can say disabled. So if I add the annotation disabled, the number 1 will be disabled. If you notice here, so the 5 test cases disabled. If you see here, these are disabled test cases. These are ignored test cases. So this is a change in the JUnit 5. So you can add disabled. Okay. If I run it again, it should be fine. And also, if you want to run this only once, okay. So we can say before class. Okay. Instead, you can say before all. This will be running only once. Okay, your object creation will not be done every time. So if I run this particular guy, okay, actually I have made it null here, so there should be a null pointer exception or something when we have it. Why is the test case failing? before all method public void must be static. So you need to have a static for before all. Okay, I think before all is when before everything gets executed in your test case. But yeah, let's not go to before all then. Before let's retain that. But yeah, that you got the point, right? So we can use that. So what else is there? So let me go to the documentation and we can check what all other things are there. There is something called tag, so you can use tags for grouping some tests. So these are similar to the groups in the test ng. So that is another thing. You can do nested annotation using nested tests using nested annotation. As I said, before all was like before class, so you can have a that particular method run before the class gets initialized. So, and if you see here, those methods must be static and are inherited. So we have to use static, but yeah, I don't want to use static, so let's not go there. I don't want to use before all for now. But yeah, basically you understood the intention, right? So this is how we write JUnit 5 test cases with Java 8. And there is one more thing I wanted to show. If let's say there is an exception, right? So if I say if my number equal to 0, right? I want to throw an illegal argument exception. Okay, saying number must not be 0. Okay, so let's write test case for that. How do you test in general in JUnit? You add an annotation saying at expected throw or something like that, right? So let's see how to do that in JUnit 5. I'm going to say don't play. Okay, I'm just going to say 0. Right now this is going to give me exception, right? So this is going to throw me an exception basically. So let's see what happens when I throw an exception. You notice here it shows fizz for me because my logic of 0 divided by 3 is 0, right? So this is a major loophole, right, in my code. So what I'll do, I'll just move this code a little bit above, because I should have checked 0 before itself, right? So I should have checked before 0 before I went and did the operation on 3. Okay, if you notice here, yeah, the test case failed basically, saying there is an exception, right? So this is what we expected. So now let's go to the test case and how do we assert this? Okay, so there is an option called as assert throws. So in the assertions API, assert throws. So you can do an assert throws. What exception do I need to check? It's illegal argument exception dot class. And argument expects a executable. Okay, this is nothing but a lambda expression. So you can convert the executable into a lambda expression because it's a functional interface, right? So let's write the code and then finally we do that. So we do a play of 0. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm just calling the play of 0 here. I'm not doing anything here. So what basically I need to do is I need to assert if there is an exception. If I do a play on a FizzBuzz object, if it is 0, I need to throw this exception. So if I run it, this should now assert me that okay, this particular play had an exception. So if you notice here, yeah, my test case has passed. So what if if there is no exception, right? Let's try to comment that and see if what happens if does the test fail. If there is no exception, yep, is the text fails. Okay, so that is what we basically wanted. We wanted to assert the exception as well, so using JUnit 5. Okay, so that is how you write assertions in JUnit 5. Okay, so I think that's it. If you have any comments or questions or anything related to any topic or even with JUnits or anything, let me know. Do put that in the comments down below, so I'll try to answer that whenever I see that. Okay, that's it for this particular video. Meet you again in the next video. Thank you.